Hey everyone, it's nice to have you with me today. Today I'd like to show you how we're going to turn boxes from our pantry that we would normally be recycling into something like this. So again, we are recycling, but we're recycling it into our journals. So to begin with, we want to break them down, and I open up the ends and then I find where they've been glued together. Right here, this seam, and then I will rip it apart from there. Any size boxes that you have will be fine because we can find a way to use them all. There we go. This one. A little bit of plastic on it from the sticker that's holding it closed. I didn't want to rip it, but sometimes they rip. Find where it's glued together and open it up. Okay, so that's our first step. My second step is in cutting them down. So what I want to do is I cut them down on the seams, just like this, and get the most out of them as I can. Since I ripped this one, I will be losing a little bit here. We will cut them down further into tags or journaling cards as needed. Today I'm just going to show you how we get to that point. So now we have this nice big one, which is really nice. These little ones on the sides of this really aren't much use. I'm not going to say they're not any good, because somebody could find a use for them. For me, they're not much use, so I just kind of cut this down and then throw those little ones like that away. So you use whatever kind of paper trimmer that you have to cut these down. Guillotine, whatever kind. You can even use scissors just to cut them down. So now we have this nice big one also. So I'm going to continue on and get these all cut down and save what I feel that I can use, and then I can recycle the rest. It's cardboard. Now these little ones on the end of this box can be made into a tall tag. So I will save those strips also. Just like that. A tall, narrow tag. And then we have this piece here. And I really like these pieces also. They can make a nice bookmark. Or again, a tall tag. These ones can make a little bitty tag. Sometimes we have use for little bitty tags. Okay, so I will get these cut down and I will be back. My next step in this process is to coat all of these pieces that I have cut out, and I've got quite a range of pieces here for making tags and stuff out of. And I will coat both sides probably with 2 coats. This is probably the longest, tedious part of this whole thing, is just coating them, letting them dry, and doing it all over again. I think we all know how to do this, and I will be back when I have these all done and dried and ready for the next step. Hi, I'm back. I have these all coated, front and back. Some of the fronts have 3 coats on them. As you can see, you can still see a little bit of the printing that was on the box. That's okay, because by the time we add some ink and everything to it, it's going to be in the background, which is just going to add a little more dimension to your project, and it won't hurt a thing. I'm going to show you how I go about adding some color to it. I have my distress inks, and I'm just going to play with all the different colors I have, see what we come up with. So the first one I'm using is dried marigold, And I have an acrylic block here and a Ranger mini mister that I'm going to spray this with. And then I'm going to rub it on my food box here, my cardboard. Now, these boxes, of course, are not corrugated cardboard. I think that would be too heavy for a tag or a journaling card. So I stick to the lighter weight boxes when I do this. It's going to add dimension to your journal. So we want to kind of bear in mind that and keep this as thin as possible, but yet have it be thick enough so that it has substance to it, heavier than lightweight cardstock. So I'm going to do a few of these in this color in different sizes so that I have varying sizes of tags when I go to use them in my project. I'm going to leave it for you to watch for a little while, and then I will be back with all of these all inked up with our first layer of ink. My first coat I put on these ones was dried marigold, and I'm going to stay within the same color family, and I'm going to use Spice Marmalade on this one. And it is a distress ink, and it's darker. So that looks pretty cool. Now you can go about this in several different ways. I like to use the acrylic block. You can just put this on your mat if you want and spray it on there, and then dip your papers into it instead of taking your, let me show you. You can pretend this is your mat and you're going to spray it and you're going to ink it all up, and then you can just take your pieces and you can dip it into it like this to get them colored up. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to ink these all up again, and I'll show you the colors as I go along. But there's those ones. So let me take this one back and put the rest of this ink on that. So I don't want to waste it. You really can't see the first ink because it was such a light color there. But that's okay. It still is, it's still there, and it's going to add dimension to your project. So I'm going to continue working on this and let you watch. On my cardboard now, on these ones, I have Spice Marmalade and dried marigold. I need to add an oxide to them now so I can get that oxidation on them with all those cool patterns with the spot. Try some mustard seed an oxide spray. Get that all mixed up and just give it a little spray and let it dry and see what happens. So we'll move those out of the way. And the next group of ones that I have, these are the green ones that I have. So I have Rusty Hinge, which is an oxide, and we're going to add more oxide to it, but you can see where the spots are starting to appear. And let's get these all out. And we have green. I want to add, oh, look at the spots on this one. That's what I'm talking about. That's the texture that we're looking for. Okay. So I want more green on these because I'm going to use these in my, I have another nature journal I want to build. Let's try some mowed lawn and see what we get with that. As long as we get it all shook up down in the bottom here. That's pretty green. It might be a little more intense than what I want, but I will be adding brown to this, so I think we'll be okay. If not, we'll just switch it up if we decide we don't like it. So we'll set these aside to dry. The next ones are the blue ones that we did with weathered wood and tumbled glass. So for this, let's see. We do have faded jeans. That's nice. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and add a little yellow to that too. I like blue and yellow together. Mix green, we'll go with it. There we go. So now, I will be back after these are all dry. Our tag bases are all dry. And here we have some really pretty texture. There's the green ones, the green and some blue. Here's the two different colors of yellow and orange. And here is the green with some wild honey. And I'm very pleased. There's more of the green. Little tags. So my next step is to take these with some oxide ink again, and I will use ground espresso for this one, and I am going to use my applicator tool here, and I am going to take each one, and I know this might be like redundant, but and I'm going to eventually probably cut these down to different sizes, but I can get part of this done so that when I do cut them down, I'm working on my journal and I'm like, oh, this needs maybe this much cut off, then all I have to do is that edge instead of the whole edges. So to me, it still saves time, even though I may be cutting some of it off, and what I cut off I probably will use in another project anyhow as a snippet or something. So I'm just going to take my applicator and ink it up and get a good amount of ink around the corners like this, and then a little less on the edges like this. And I will go around this whole thing, and then I'll show you what we'll do to this to finish this off as far as the inking process. So I will be back. I've inked up all the edges, and as I had stated, I was using ground espresso, which is an oxide ink. And now this is going to be sprinkled like I had sprinkled before to get this design on it. And now we're going to get it around the edges. It's going to give it a good border. Now, if you are not the type of person that likes to be grungy, I like to be grungy, so I like to ink edges up. You don't have to go with the brown edging. You really don't have to do any edging if you don't want to. It's just something that I like. But if I were to want this maybe for a journal that is not a grungy journal, then I would not have used brown. I may have used the green or the orange to ink up around my edges and then sprinkled it. And again, you don't have to sprinkle it either. You can just leave them like the bright colors without all these spots. It's just what I like to do, and I'm showing you my way of turning cardboard into tags and journal cards. And so I'll just take this just like I did before and sprinkle a little bit of water along the edges and let it dry. And then they'll be complete as far as the coloring of the cardboard goes. And from here, we will just go ahead with some collaging. And I'll do a piece or two, but I'm not going to do them all because I'm going to save these for future projects. So I am going to go around the edge like I just did on this one, on all of these. And then I'll be back and we'll put one of these together completely. All right, they are pretty much dry. I have one that is completely dry and the other ones are drying. This is the one that I just sprinkled on with the paintbrush like I had done this. And then after that, I got to thinking, you know what, I think I'm going to change these up a little bit. So I took them and I sprayed them with a very fine mister and got this. So you can see there's a little bit of difference. This has a lot more of the spots than this does. These are bigger spots, these are smaller. So that's the difference in what you use for spraying them or splattering them. And so I thought it was very pretty. And I thought I would share these with you, a few of them. At the end of the video, we will have pictures so that you can see them all. But they made a really nice border around the outside edge by doing this on it. Like I had said before, you don't have to do that border. You don't have to do brown. They don't have to be grunged up. And it's going to vary as to how much water goes on it, as to how much brown is actually left on there. Here's one that I thought was exceptionally pretty. So I have some that I had done a little bit differently, and these ones are with fired brick distress ink here, and then I added watercolor. So you don't have to do this, stay with one medium. You can try different mediums on it and see how it turns out. And as you can see, I did not splatter these. I'll take that back. This is a little bit of the watercolor splattered on them, but I didn't use any oxide on them, so they're not going to do this effect. You can see the difference. And all around the outside edge of it, I just took my distress ink and went around the outside end. So that this is not as grungy looking. It's possible to use these in different journals. You don't have to do everything one way just because that's the way somebody shows you. Use your own ideas, use your own mediums that you have available to you, and experiment. It's just cardboard. And remember, it was just something we were going to recycle to begin with. And now we've made it into these beautiful pieces that we can put in our journal. But play with it, and maybe you'll come up with a different idea. I have one that is completely dry here, and I'm pretty confident that this will go in most anything that I make as far as for a journal card. And I have a stencil, and this probably would be my next step, is to add a stencil with it. So there are a couple different ways then I could do my stenciling on this. All right, I'm going to take this stencil and I am going to use pine needles. And this is a brass stencil. It's by Linnell Harlow of Dreamweaver. It is LJ829. And I'm going to take my applicator tool. So I'm going to use pine needles and I'm going to stencil this on. Being that it's a brass stencil and it's very intricate, if I go around in circles, it's going to catch on my applicator tool. So I'm just going to pounce on this one. All right, and there you have, and I'm going to put a little at the other edge too, coming in from the other direction. All right, now we can also take this and do it another way, and I'll show you that. We're going to use gesso. And I'm just going to take my stencil and lay it on here. Now, because it's very detailed. Can you see that it has all those little like feathery type parts? They catch on everything, so you have to be very careful. I'm going to take this stencil and my palette knife and a little bit of gesso, be as careful as I can, and see what kind of image I can get with this stencil by using the gesso. It won't be as clear, it won't be as perfect as what it was with the ink, but that's okay with me. I'm not really striving for perfection. I'm striving for just some detail, some texture on the back. So as you can see, it's not, let me see, there we go, as compared to this one. It's very detailed. It has, you can see all those little feathery things in here. Some of the gesso went underneath the stencil, but you know what? I like that. And if this dries, by the time I get done with making my first card, I'm going to show you what we can do to enhance this even better. So I'm going to go on top of it and add another fern at the top of our stencil. There we go. And already it's starting to pick up some of the green you can see here. So we'll let that one dry and work on the other one. All right, so I want to add some collage to this. And I'm going to start probably with a piece of book paper. And this is dictionary paper. I'm just going to rip off this white edge here. And I pretty much just guesstimate on everything. I don't do anything like with, well, I won't say I don't do anything with perfection, but usually when I'm doing something like this, it's just kind of guesstimated. So I have a little bit, I don't want to hide the ferns too much. Here we go. And I'm going to use the same pine needles for edging this up. Normally I would do brown, and I think I would just want to try something different today. So I'm going to ink it up with my colored ink instead of brown. I have a piece of one of the other pieces that I had done in my last journal, and I'm going to add that on here also. And it's a nature journal, so I'm not sold on using lace, but I don't have a problem with putting a little bit of cheesecloth on it. And this is some cheesecloth that I had coffee stained. I was staining up a bunch of papers, and so I stained some cheesecloth also. And we'll put some of that on here. That gives us some interesting texture. And I have a piece of this textured paper, some out of my pizza box that I've been hoarding. And it's a blue-green color, and I'm trying to see if I'm thinking it's going to match, and I think it doesn't clash, and I love the texture in it. So I'm going to leave that there for just a minute and see what I decide to do. I have a book that I have cut a bunch of mushrooms out of previously, and let's see if we can find one that we think would go well. This one I decided would make a really nice belly band, so I left that all together. But there's also some moss in here, and there's some ferns in here too. No, that's not the right size. So thrilled with the red on this with that mushroom. Let me see if I find a mushroom that has a little bit of red in it. I always spend, it seems like, most of my time trying to figure out my focal point. I guess because it's such an important part to our collage that we have a really good focal point, that I'm pretty picky about it, but nothing is really speaking to me here. Okay, so it might be this piece here that I'm going to take away. I'm going to put our dictionary paper underneath our textured paper, that like that, and I'm thinking that all comes together better. I think it was too much dictionary paper together, and the red color on that piece just didn't sit well with me. I seem to be going back to this one, so that's the one I'm going to use. And I think that all looks all right. So let's get this glued down. So for our dictionary paper, we're just going to use some of our art glitter glue. And then because this is so textured, let's tear it up a little bit. Let's get the edges here going. It actually looks like it could be a moss or something out in the woods. A little bit smaller piece is good. We'll take our tacky glue and glue this down. Because it's so textured, I want the glue to get into it a little bit better. And the tacky glue seems to be the best for me for when I'm working with textured papers. These are the kind of projects that I really get into doing. I like to be messy, so I like to play with inks, and I like to be creative. So we'll also get our cheesecloth down. I don't glue my cheesecloth down. I leave it so it can move around. I just get it down like in spots so I know it's not gonna peel off or whatever, and it sticks to me too. We're gonna put out a little bit of ink around our mushroom. And again, I'm using the green ink. It's hard for me to change things up that I normally do all the time, but it was time to change it up a little bit, and I kind of like the green around the edge instead of the brown. I'm going to put tacky glue on this also because I'm gluing to that textured paper and the cheesecloth. So I want to make sure that I get enough, and I'm getting it all around all of these edges so that it doesn't lift off, and putting that down. Just like that. Press that down nice and firmly. Now, if you're working with these pieces and you're adding more water, more liquid to them, they are going to bleed. To get around that, you could spray them with a fixative and let it dry. And then if you wanted to add something on top, then you wouldn't have to worry about it bleeding. Okay, so there is our tag. Our journal card. To finish that off, I probably would take, a little stamp. This is a stamp from Hampton Arts. It's Diffusion Collection, and it's called Antique Texture 4502. So if you're looking for it, you can type in Hampton Art Stamps and see if they have it. But there's lots of other crackle stamps out there that you can use. And I'm just going to put a little bit of crackle up in that empty space and down here. And then I would feel that's done. So I'll set that aside. And let's work on the one that we added the gesso to. It's not dry yet, so I'm gonna take a minute and try drying that. All right, so here it is all dry, and I had told you I would show you what we could do so that we could see this fern more detailed. We could take our stencil and lay it back on top. Now, it does not matter if it's lined up perfectly or not. Actually, if it's a little bit off, that's even better because it gives it a little bit of shadow then behind it. I'm trying to see where I'm at with it. It actually is all the way around like that. And then I'm going to go down just slightly. And I'm going to use this pine needles again, and I'm going to dab up and down. And then we'll lift it up and see what kind of surprise we have. There we go. I think that's very pretty. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing to this other one also. The ground espresso would be real pretty underneath too, with maybe a yellower type fern. There we go. Now we have a more detailed image with a nice white shadow behind it. The difference between that and this. Which is your favorite, guys? Do you like it like this, or do you like it with the white behind it? Okay, so I really like this part here, and I don't want to do a lot of collaging to cover up either the ferns or that. So I'm undecided as to what to do to finish this off. To just put something on there like this, I mean, it's an option. It's not what I normally do. So since I don't know, and my book isn't made yet, I'm going to leave that as it is for now. So here's a finished one, and here's one that is going to wait until I have my journal done, and then I will decide what to do. As in all the rest of these pieces that I did, I am not going to work on them now. I will set them aside, and when I have a place for them in a journal, then I will finish them up. But I will have at least gotten this far. I have quite a collection to choose from, and even these yellows would go nicely in a nature journal. The blue has turned to green, so they probably could work in a nature journal also. So I think I have a nice collection here to work on. So thanks for watching. I hope you were inspired with this. I hope you go make some of your own and use up your inks or whatever mediums you have. I feel that putting the gesso on the cardboard first is great. It gives you a base. Your colors will be more brilliant. You won't have all that print that's from the box showing through. There might be a little bit, but not as much. And also, if it's a glossy box, the gesso will tone it down so it's matte rather than glossy. And for me, that's what I like. If you like glossy, that's fine too. So thanks for watching. You have a wonderful day, and see you again soon. Bye now.